The Bolian deep-sea exploration vessel hovered silently above the seafloor, its sensors probing the murky depths off the coast of Greece. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship as the scanners detected something impossible: the unmistakable outlines of an advanced underwater city. The alien crew froze in disbelief, their eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing towering spires, vast domes, and intricate networks of streets and tunnels stretching across the ocean floor. Ceres, the lead Bolian scientist, leaned forward, her luminescent skin pulsing with excitement. "Impossible," she whispered, her three-fingered hand tracing the contours of a structure that dwarfed even their most impressive underwater habitats. "This technology, it's far beyond what humans should be capable of." As the Bolians meticulously documented their find, encrypting their transmissions to avoid detection by Earth's primitive monitoring systems, they were unaware of the storm they were about to unleash. Within hours, their discovery would shatter humanity's understanding of its own history and force world governments to reveal the existence of extraterrestrial life. In Washington, D.C., Dennis Tucker, a renowned marine archaeologist and deep-sea diving expert, was jolted awake by an urgent call from the United Nations. His expertise in ancient Mediterranean civilizations had made him the top candidate to lead a hastily assembled human team to investigate the alien discovery. As he rushed to pack, his mind raced with possibilities. Could this be the legendary Atlantis, dismissed for centuries as mere myth? Aboard a military transport plane, Dennis briefed his team on the limited information they had received. The excitement was palpable, but so was the tension. This wasn't just about archaeology anymore. It was about humanity's place in the cosmos. Upon arriving at the coordinates provided by the Bolians, Dennis and his team were met with an unexpected sight. The alien vessel had established an exclusion zone around the ruins, a shimmering energy barrier preventing any approach. A holographic projection of Ceres materialized before them, her alien features set in a mask of stern resolve. "Greetings, humans," Ceres began, her voice translated through advanced algorithms. "The Bolian High Council has claimed this site under galactic salvage laws. The advanced nature of these artifacts clearly indicates non-human origin. Your presence here is unnecessary and unwelcome." Dennis stepped forward, his years of experience in maritime law and archaeology steeling his resolve. "With all due respect, Ambassador Ceres, this site lies within Earth's territorial waters. Regardless of its origin, it's part of our planet's cultural heritage. We have every right to study and preserve it." The situation quickly escalated into a diplomatic crisis. Both sides refused to back down, the Bolians citing their superior technology and galactic authority, while the humans stood firm on their sovereign rights. As tensions rose, strange energy readings began emanating from the underwater city, casting an eerie glow through the ocean depths. Caught off guard by this unexpected development, the Bolians reluctantly agreed to allow a single human representative to join their research team. Dennis, despite Ceres' obvious displeasure, was chosen for this crucial role. As he prepared to board the alien vessel, Dennis received a covert message from United Earth Defense. The encrypted communique revealed a chilling truth. The underwater city might contain technology vital for humanity's survival against an impending extraterrestrial threat. The weight of human civilization now rested on his shoulders. Standing at the airlock, about to step into an alien world, Dennis took a deep breath. He knew he faced not only the challenge of unraveling the mysteries of the underwater city, but also the delicate task of navigating alien politics and securing humanity's claim to its own hidden legacy. With determination in his eyes, he stepped forward, ready to plunge into the unknown depths of both the ocean and galactic diplomacy. Dennis stepped through the airlock, his heart pounding as the alien atmosphere enveloped him. The interior of the Bolian vessel was a marvel of engineering, its curved corridors lined with pulsating bioluminescent panels that cast an otherworldly glow. He ran his fingers along the smooth, organic-looking walls, marveling at their texture. Ceres appeared beside him, her luminescent skin flickering with what Dennis interpreted as irritation. "This way," she said curtly, leading him through the labyrinthine passageways. As they walked, Dennis's eyes darted from one technological wonder to another. Holographic displays floated in midair, showing real-time data of the ocean outside. Alien crew members moved with fluid grace, their three-fingered hands manipulating controls that seemed to respond to mere thoughts. "Our propulsion system," Ceres explained, gesturing to a pulsating orb of energy suspended in a transparent chamber. "It allows us to navigate the most treacherous waters with ease." Ceres' expression remained impassive, but Dennis sensed a hint of pride in her voice. "Indeed, your primitive submersibles would be crushed like eggshells at these depths." Ceres frowned, her skin pulsing with a deeper hue. "Impossible. These are clearly of non-human origin." Dennis pressed his palm against the transparent barrier, his eyes fixed on a metallic disc etched with familiar patterns. "I've spent my entire career studying Mediterranean civilizations. Trust me, there's a connection here." Before Ceres could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. "We're beginning our descent," she announced, ushering Dennis towards the bridge. The ship's command center was a hive of activity. Bolian crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their hands dancing over holographic interfaces. At the center stood Dr. Zorn, his elongated features set in concentration as he directed the operation. "Approaching the target site," a crew member announced. "Energy readings are intensifying." Dennis watched in awe as the massive underwater city came into view on the main display. Towering spires and vast domes loomed out of the darkness, their architecture a blend of familiar and alien elements. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the control panels as the energy emanating from the city interfered with the Bolian systems. "Stabilizers failing," a crew member called out. "We're losing control." Dr. Zorn turned to him, curiosity overriding any initial skepticism. "What do you suggest?" "Human deep-sea exploration equipment," Dennis replied confidently. "It's designed to withstand extreme conditions without relying on complex energy fields. It might just be primitive enough to work here." Ceres scoffed, but Dr. Zorn nodded thoughtfully. "An intriguing hypothesis. Very well, we shall attempt your method." Using the ship's fabrication technology, they quickly produced replicas of human diving suits and equipment. As they donned the gear, Dennis couldn't help but smile at the sight of the sleek Bolians awkwardly maneuvering in the bulky suits. Their gamble paid off. As they approached the city in the human-designed submersibles, the interference lessened. They were able to draw close to the massive energy barrier surrounding the underwater metropolis. Dr. Zorn attempted to disable the barrier using Bolian technology, but his efforts proved futile. The shimmering field remained stubbornly intact, its surface rippling with strange symbols and patterns. Dennis studied the markings intently, his mind racing through years of research and study. "These symbols," he muttered, "they're similar to ancient Greek and Minoan script, but with subtle differences." Ceres' skin flashed with skepticism. "That's preposterous. This city clearly predates human civilization." "Maybe not," Dennis countered. "What if there was an advanced human civilization that had contact with extraterrestrial beings in the distant past? It would explain the mix of familiar and alien elements we're seeing." Dr. Zorn considered this for a moment before nodding. "A fascinating theory. How do you propose we test it?" Dennis took a deep breath. "Let me approach the barrier. I'll perform a series of gestures based on ancient Greek rituals. If I'm right, it should respond." Despite Ceres' vehement objections, Dr. Zorn authorized the attempt. Dennis moved slowly towards the shimmering barrier, his heart pounding in his ears. As he drew closer, the energy field began to react, creating visible disturbances in its surface. Following his instincts, Dennis began to move his arms in precise practice motions. He recited ancient Greek phrases under his breath, his body swaying in the familiar rhythms of long-forgotten ceremonies. To everyone's astonishment, the barrier began to flicker and weaken. Encouraged, Dennis increased the intensity of his movements, his voice rising in a chant that echoed through the ocean depths. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the seafloor. The weakened barrier collapsed entirely, sending out a shockwave that buffeted their submersibles. As they steadied themselves, they watched in awe as the city awakened. Lights flickered on throughout the structures, revealing the true scale and grandeur of the underwater metropolis. Massive generators hummed to life, and long-dormant systems began to reactivate. I can understand parts of it, he said, his voice filled with wonder. It's an ancient form of Greek, but with elements I've never encountered before. Dr. Zorn, his eyes wide with excitement, turned to Dennis. Your expertise has proven invaluable. I insist that you lead our first expedition into the city. Ceres bristled at this, her skin pulsing with a mix of emotions. Dennis could see the conflict in her eyes. Her worldview had been challenged, her leadership threatened. Yet there was also a spark of curiosity, a grudging respect for the humans' achievements. As they prepared to enter the city, Dennis received another covert message from United Earth Defense. The encrypted communication warned of possible hostile alien factions that might be drawn to the newly awakened city. Incredible, Dr. Zorn murmured, his elongated features slack with awe. The craftsmanship, the materials, nothing like this exists in any known civilization. Dennis stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. It's like stepping into a dream of ancient Greece, but more. He ran his hand along one of the columns, feeling a faint vibration beneath his palm. There's power here, still active after all this time. Ceres moved to join him, her earlier skepticism replaced by genuine curiosity. These markings, she said, gesturing to the shifting symbols, they appear to be some form of information interface. As if in response to her words, the symbols on the nearest column rearranged themselves, forming a pattern that Dennis recognized with a jolt of excitement. It's a map, he exclaimed, studying the newly formed diagram. A layout of the city, I think. And look, he pointed to a pulsing glyph at the center of the map. That must be some kind of central command center. Dr. Zorn nodded, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Then that's where we need to go. Lead the way, Mr. Everett. Following the map's guidance, the team navigated through a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each more wondrous than the last. They passed through gardens where bioluminescent plants swayed in an unseen current, their soft glow providing illumination. In another room, they found what appeared to be a medical bay, with sleek devices that hummed with latent energy. As they approached the central command center, Dennis felt a growing sense of connection to his surroundings. It was as if the city itself was reaching out to him, welcoming him home. The doors to the command center slid open silently as they approached. Inside, a massive holographic display dominated the circular room, currently showing only a swirling pattern of light. Consoles lined the walls, their surfaces dark and dormant. Dennis approached the central console, drawn by an instinct he couldn't explain. As his hand hovered over the smooth surface, it suddenly lit up, a soft blue glow emanating from beneath. The holographic display flickered to life, projecting a human figure that looked at Dennis with an expression of recognition. DNA scan complete. Human user identified, the figure announced in a language that Dennis realized, with a start, he could understand perfectly. Welcome, descendant. How may I assist you? Dennis shook his head, equally bewildered. I don't know, but I think I can access the city's archives through this interface. He turned back to the hologram. Can you show us the history of this city? How it came to be here? The holographic display shifted, filling the room with images and text. Dennis began to translate, his voice filled with growing wonder and excitement. It says that this city, Atlantis, was indeed built by an advanced human civilization. But they weren't alone. The images showed humans working alongside tall, ethereal beings. They had help from an alien race called the Guardians. These Guardians shared their knowledge with the Atlanteans, helping them create all of this. Dr. Zorn leaned in, his scientific curiosity piqued. Fascinating. But why hide such a marvel beneath the waves? Dennis continued reading, his expression growing grave. There was another alien faction involved, the Destroyers. They wanted to use Atlantean technology as weapons. The display showed scenes of conflict, great battles fought with energy weapons and impossible machines. To protect their advancements, the Atlanteans made the decision to sink the city and erase its existence from history. As the team processed this revelation, A tremor shook the room. Warning lights flashed across the consoles, and the holographic display shifted to show a view of deep space. A massive fleet of ships, unlike anything Dennis had ever seen, was approaching Earth. Dr. Zorn's face paled. Those ships, they belonged to the destroyers, a civilization we thought extinct for millennia. Ceres turned to Dennis, her earlier skepticism completely evaporated. We need to activate the city's defenses, now. Dennis nodded, his mind racing. He turned back to the holographic interface. How do we activate Atlantis' defensive systems? The hologram responded, full defensive activation requires the retrieval of 5 key artifacts scattered throughout the city. These artifacts must be brought to the central energy core and activated by a human user. Dr. Zorn quickly organized the team into pairs, assigning each group a section of the city to search. To Dennis's surprise, he found himself paired with Ceres. As they set off towards the eastern section of Atlantis, Dennis couldn't help but notice a change in Ceres' demeanor. The hostility she had shown earlier was gone, replaced by a focused intensity. Dennis smiled, carefully making his way across a narrow beam. We're full of surprises, though I have to admit I'm in awe of your technological expertise. We make a good team. Their search led them through crumbling laboratories and long-abandoned living quarters. In one room, they found a device that looked like a fusion of ancient Greek art and advanced alien technology. As Dennis approached it, the device hummed to life, responding to his presence. This must be one of the artifacts, he said, carefully lifting the object. It pulsed with a soft, warm light in his hands. In the center of the command room, a pedestal had risen from the floor, with 5 distinct slots clearly meant for the artifacts. As the team reassembled, each placing their found artifact into its designated spot, Dennis felt a surge of energy coursing through the room. The hologram reappeared, its expression grave. To activate Atlantis' full defensive capabilities, a human user must interface directly with the city's systems. This process is not without risk. Dennis stepped forward without hesitation. I'll do it. What do I need to do? The hologram gestured to a chair that had appeared in the center of the artifact formation. Sit here. The city will establish a neural link. Your mind will guide our defenses. With a deep breath, Dennis sat in the chair. The moment he leaned back, energy surged through him. His vision filled with streams of data, images of the city's systems, the approaching destroyer fleet. He felt the immense power of Atlantis at his fingertips, waiting to be unleashed. As Atlantis emerged fully, Dennis focused on the defensive systems. A massive energy shield sprang to life, enveloping not just the city, but the entire planet. The approaching destroyer fleet, now visible in the sky to the naked eye, slammed into the barrier, unable to penetrate. Through his neural link, Dennis heard the surprised and angry communications of the destroyer ships. He felt a fierce pride in humanity's forgotten legacy, now awakened to protect Earth once more. But he also sensed the strain on his mind and body. Maintaining the shield, coordinating the city's systems, it was taking a toll. As his vision began to blur and his consciousness started to fade, Dennis heard Ceres' voice, distant but urgent. Hold on, Dennis. We're going to get you out of there. Just hold on. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, protected for now by an ancient shield and the willpower of one man. But the destroyers were not about to give up so easily, and the true battle was only beginning. When he awoke, Dennis found himself in a makeshift infirmary, surrounded by worried faces. Dr. Zorn hovered nearby, monitoring his vital signs on a strange device that seemed to be a fusion of Bolian and Atlantean technology. Safe, for now, Dr. Zorn assured him. The destroyer fleet is holding position just beyond the shield's range, but we have more immediate concerns. As Dennis regained his bearings, he was briefed on the situation. The emergence of Atlantis had sent shockwaves through the global community. News feeds displayed images of the majestic city rising from the ocean, its gleaming spires piercing the sky. World leaders scrambled to respond, their faces etched with a mixture of awe and fear as they addressed their nations. A communication terminal nearby crackled to life, displaying the stern visage of Admiral James Harding. Mr. Everett, the Admiral began, his voice commanding attention. "I hope you're recovering well. We need you back on your feet. As of 600 hours this morning, you've been officially designated as Earth's representative in Atlantis." Dennis blinked, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Sir, I'm not sure I'm qualified." "You're the only one who can fully interface with the city's systems," Harding cut him off. "We need you to secure Atlantis's technology for Earth's defense. That's an order, son." As the transmission ended, Dennis caught the concerned glances exchanged by the Bolian team. He realized he was now walking a tightrope between his duty to Earth and the trust he'd built with his alien colleagues. Over the next few days, Dennis and Ceres worked tirelessly to understand Atlantis' systems. They discovered a network of advanced reactors powering the city's defenses, each requiring constant maintenance and calibration. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Ceres marveled, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface. "The energy output is astronomical, but the system is incredibly delicate. One misstep could cause a cascade failure." As they worked, Dennis couldn't help but notice the growing ease between them. The hostility that had marked their early interactions had given way to mutual respect and something more, a spark of connection that both excited and terrified him. Their progress was interrupted by Dr. Zorn, who burst into the control room, his elongated features animated with excitement. "I've done it," he exclaimed, brandishing a data crystal. "I've deciphered a significant portion of the Atlantean records, and you won't believe what I've found." The holographic display came to life, showing a map of Atlantis with several locations highlighted. "Weapons caches," Dr. Zorn explained. "Advanced weaponry combining Guardian technology with human innovation. If we can recover these, it could turn the tide against the destroyers." Dennis studied the map, noting the precarious locations of many caches. "It won't be easy. Some of these are in unstable areas of the city." Ceres stepped forward, her skin shimmering with commitment. "We'll need to form teams. I'll lead one if you lead another." As they prepared for the expedition, reports came in of destroyer probes testing Earth's defenses. The massive alien ships loomed in the sky, visible even from the ground, their presence a constant reminder of the threat they faced. Dennis and Ceres set out with their teams, navigating through treacherous corridors and partially flooded chambers. In one particularly unstable section, a sudden tremor caused the floor to give way beneath them. Dennis reached out, grabbing Ceres' hand as they fell, tumbling into a lower level. Debris rained down, sealing off their exit. As the dust settled, Dennis found himself in close quarters with Ceres, their bodies pressed together in the confined space. He became acutely aware of her alien physiology, the subtle pulse of her skin, the strange yet alluring scent of her. Ceres nodded, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, the threat of the destroyers, the weight of their mission, all of it faded away. There was only this connection, this undeniable attraction between human and alien. The moment was broken by the crackle of their communicators. "Dennis, Ceres, do you copy?" Dr. Zorn's voice came through, infused with concern. As they searched for an escape route, they stumbled upon one of the weapons caches. The cache contained devices that defied easy description, sleek, organic-looking objects that hummed with latent energy. Their discovery was tempered by the news that greeted them upon their return to the control center. The destroyer fleet had launched its first serious assault, engaging Earth's combined forces in a fierce battle in low Earth orbit. Admiral Harding's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "The Bolian ships are giving us an edge, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. We need those Atlantean weapons, Everett. Whatever it takes." As Dennis coordinated the distribution of the recovered weapons to Earth's forces, he and the team made another breakthrough. They activated an advanced communications array, allowing them to intercept destroyer transmissions. The intercepted messages painted a chilling picture. The destroyer fleet was led by Admiral Krax, a name that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened Bolian warriors. Krax's transmissions revealed an obsession with Atlantis, a belief that the city held the key to ultimate power in the galaxy. As tension mounted and the orbital battles intensified, a new player entered the scene. A sleek, otherworldly ship appeared at the edge of the solar system, a diplomatic envoy from the Guardian civilization. The arrival of the Guardians sparked hope and controversy in equal measure. Earth's governments were divided, some seeing the Guardians as potential saviors, others fearing another alien force they couldn't trust. In Atlantis, Dennis gathered his team, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to unite," he said, looking at each of them in turn, human, Bolian, and now Guardian. "Not just our species, but our knowledge, our technology. It's the only way we'll survive this." He laid out his plan, a network of defensive outposts around Earth, combining the best of human, Bolian, and Guardian expertise. It was ambitious, perhaps even impossible, but as he spoke, he saw the spark of hope ignite in the eyes of his companions. As they set to work, none of them could have predicted the challenges that lay ahead, the sabotage, the conspiracy, the test of trust that would push them to their limits. But in that moment, united in purpose, they dared to believe that they could face whatever the universe threw at them. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, but for the first time since Atlantis rose from the depths, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Their pursuit led them through winding corridors and hidden passageways beneath Atlantis. Using a combination of Atlantean scanning technology and Ceres' intuition, they uncovered a concealed entrance to a secret facility. "This doesn't make sense," Dennis whispered, his eyes darting from screen to screen. "How did they set all this up without us knowing?" Ceres' skin pulsed with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Look at these readouts. They've been siphoning power from the city's main grid for weeks." Their examination was cut short by the sound of approaching footsteps. Dennis and Ceres ducked behind a row of servers, just as a group of uniformed individuals entered the room. At their head was a tall, imposing man with steel-gray hair and a face etched with purpose. "General Marcus Blackwood," Dennis breathed, recognizing the man from Earth's military briefings. Blackwood's voice rang out, addressing his team. "Gentlemen, our window of opportunity is closing. We must accelerate our plans to secure Atlantis for humanity alone. The aliens have served their purpose, but now it's time for us to take control." Blackwood's eyes narrowed, but he maintained his composure. "Mr. Everett, I should have known you'd find your way down here eventually. I'm doing what needs to be done to ensure humanity's survival and dominance." "By betraying our allies? The very ones who've been helping us fight the destroyers?" Dennis countered, his voice rising. "Allies today, potential conquerors tomorrow," Blackwood sneered. "We can't trust them with this kind of power. Humanity must stand on its own." As they argued, Ceres noticed one of Blackwood's men quietly activating a console. Her eyes widened as she recognized the schematics on the screen. "Dennis, they're powering up some kind of weapon." A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity as the weapon powered up. Dennis struggled against his captors, his mind racing. He closed his eyes, focusing on his connection to Atlantis' systems. Through sheer force of will, he managed to access the city's power grid. He reached the main weapon controls just as the power surge hit. Instead of charging the superweapon, the redirected energy flooded into Atlantis' defensive systems. The city shuddered, its shields flaring with newfound strength. In orbit, the sudden boost in Atlantis' defenses caught the destroyer fleet off guard. Several of their ships, caught in the expanded energy field, sparked and went dark. Admiral Harding, quick to seize the advantage, coordinated a fierce counterattack with the Bolian and Guardian vessels. Back in the hidden facility, Blackwood watched in dismay as his plans crumbled. "You fool!" he snarled at Dennis. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Dennis stood his ground. "I've given Earth a fighting chance, without sacrificing our integrity or our allies." As if in response to his words, the facility's communications array crackled to life. Admiral Harding's voice filled the room. "Atlantis, do you copy? Whatever you just did, it's working. We're pushing them back." While Blackwood and his men were distracted by the battle reports, Ceres quickly accessed the facility's security systems. Force fields sprang to life, trapping the conspirators. "It's over, General," Dennis said, his voice firm. "Your plan has failed." As Bolian security forces arrived to take Blackwood and his followers into custody, Dennis and Ceres began sifting through the facility's databanks. What they found chilled them to the bone. evidence of a far-reaching conspiracy involving corrupt officials across Earth's governments. "We need to get this information to Admiral Harding and the UN immediately," Dennis said, downloading the files onto a secure data crystal. Ceres nodded, her skin pulsing with a mix of relief and concern. "But first, we need to fully activate Atlantis's defenses. The destroyers won't stay on the back foot for long." They raced back to the city's control center, where Dr. Zorn and the rest of the team were monitoring the ongoing space battle. As Dennis interfaced with Atlantis's systems, a new holographic display flickered to life. "What is that?" Dr. Zorn asked, his elongated features creased with curiosity. Dennis's eyes widened as he recognized the patterns. "It's a battle simulation system. The Atlanteans must have used it to predict and counter enemy tactics." Ceres leaned in, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "If we can integrate this with our current defensive strategies, we might just win this war," Dennis finished. As they worked to implement the ancient Atlantean tactics, reports came in of the destroyer fleet regrouping. Admiral Krax's voice, intercepted by their communications array, boomed through the control room. "This is not over," the destroyer leader growled. "Prepare for our final assault. Atlantis will fall and Earth with it." The city hummed with power, its ancient systems fully awakened and integrated with the best technology Earth and its allies could offer. As the destroyer fleet approached for their final, desperate attack, Dennis felt a glimmer of hope. The battle for Earth's survival was far from finished, but for the first time since Atlantis rose from the depths, he believed they had a real chance of victory. Victory. The battle for Earth's survival was far from finished, but for the first time since Atlantis rose from the depths, he believed they had a real chance of turning the tide. As Dennis's hand hovered over the main control interface, a surge of energy coursed through his body. The city's systems responded to his touch, ancient circuits humming to life with newfound vigor. Holographic displays flickered and expanded, filling the control room with a dazzling array of information. Dr. Zorn monitored the energy readings with growing amazement. "The power levels are off the charts. It seems the human Guardian interface has unlocked hidden capabilities within Atlantis's systems." As the energy continued to build, the massive weapon at the heart of the city began to charge. The very air crackled with potential, and the ancient structures of Atlantis thrummed with power. Dennis stood at the center of it all, his body rigid with the effort of maintaining the connection. Ceres moved to a nearby console, her fingers dancing across the controls as she monitored Dennis's vital signs. Her brow furrowed with worry. "Dennis, your body is under enormous strain. Heart rate elevated, brain activity spiking. We need to find a way to regulate the energy flow." "No time," Dennis gritted out, his voice strained. "The destroyers are coming. We have to be ready." As if on cue, the long-range sensors lit up with activity. Admiral Harding's voice crackled over the comms, urgent and clear. "Atlantis, we've got incoming. The destroyer fleet is making its final push. Thousands of ships led by Krax himself." The holographic display shifted, showing the approaching armada. It was a terrifying sight, a vast swarm of sleek, deadly vessels, dripping with weaponry. At their center loomed Krax's flagship, a behemoth that dwarfed even the largest Earth vessels. "Understood," Harding replied. "All ships assume defensive formation Delta. Guardian vessels, take point. Bolian cruisers, reinforce our flanks." As the coalition forces moved into position, Atlantis came alive with defensive energy. Shimmering shields sprang into existence, enveloping the city in a protective cocoon. Automated turrets rose from hidden compartments, their barrels tracking incoming threats with eerie precision. The destroyer fleet opened fire, a storm of energy weapons and projectiles hurtling towards Earth and its defenders. Atlantis's shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the initial barrage, while return fire from the city's weapons found their marks with uncanny accuracy. Inside the control room, Dennis staggered, nearly falling as the strain on his body intensified. Ceres rushed to his side, supporting him. "Dennis, you can't keep this up. Your body won't take it." He shook his head, sweat beading on his forehead. "Have to. Earth depends on it." Dr. Zorn worked feverishly at his console, his elongated fingers a blur over the controls. I think I've found a way to redistribute the energy load. If we can reroute some of the excess power through the city's secondary systems, it might take some of the pressure off Dennis. Ceres nodded, her expression determined. Do it. I'll monitor his vitals and make adjustments on the fly. As they worked, the battle outside reached a fever pitch. Earth pilots, flying a mix of human and alien craft, executed daring maneuvers that caught the destroyers off guard. The battle simulation system predicted enemy tactics with startling accuracy, allowing the defenders to stay one step ahead. Admiral Harding's voice came through again, tinged with a mix of excitement and disbelief. It's working! We're actually pushing them back! But the tide of battle shifted once more as Admiral Krax's flagship broke through the defensive line, its massive form bearing down on Atlantis' central spire. Dennis felt the threat like a physical blow, his connection to the city allowing him to sense the danger on an instinctive level. But he couldn't hear her. His consciousness was one with the city, focused entirely on the threat bearing down on them. As Krax's ship entered firing range, Dennis unleashed Atlantis' ultimate weapon. A beam of pure energy, brighter than the sun, lanced out from the city's central spire. It struck the destroyer flagship with pinpoint accuracy, cutting through its shields as if they were paper. For a moment, the massive ship seemed to hang suspended, outlined in searing light. Then, with a silent flash that lit up the sky, it exploded. The shockwave rippled through space, scattering the remaining destroyer ships like leaves in a storm. The coalition forces seized the moment, launching a coordinated assault that shattered the enemy formation. Within minutes, the once mighty destroyer fleet was in full retreat. As cheers erupted across the comms, alarms began blaring throughout Atlantis. Dr. Zorn's eyes widened as he read the incoming data. The weapon discharge, it's destabilized the reactor core. If we don't contain it, the resulting explosion could devastate Earth's surface. Dennis, still connected to Atlantis' systems, saw the problem with crystal clarity. He also saw the solution and the price it would demand. Without hesitation, he began the process of using the human guardian interface to stabilize the reactor. Ceres, realizing what he was doing, cried out in anguish. Dennis, no! There has to be another way. She rushed to his side, tears streaming down her face. Please, you can't do this. I need you. As Dennis worked to stabilize the reactor, sacrificing his human consciousness in the process, the retreating destroyer fleet regrouped at the solar system's edge. Though defeated, they began transmitting a signal into deep space, a call for reinforcements that threatened to escalate the conflict beyond anything Earth had yet faced. The choice before them was stark: save Dennis and risk Earth's destruction, or sacrifice one man to ensure humanity's survival. As the seconds ticked away, the consequences of their decision would shape not just Earth's future, but potentially the course of galactic history. As the reactor core approached critical levels, alarms blared throughout Atlantis. Dennis stood at the center of the maelstrom, his form blurring as he merged with the city's AI. Ceres watched, her heart racing, torn between her duty to Earth and her feelings for Dennis. Suddenly, a memory flashed in Ceres' mind, an obscure protocol she had discovered while poring over Atlantean archives. Without hesitation, she sprinted to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Dennis, hold on, she shouted over the cacophony of alarms. I'm initiating an emergency protocol. It might save you and the city. Dennis's voice came through distorted, barely human. Ceres, I can't hold it much longer. Just a few more seconds, Ceres pleaded as she input the final command sequence. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The city shuddered, and a low hum reverberated through its structures. Ceres watched in awe as Atlantis began to transform before her eyes. Walls shifted, floors realigned, and hidden mechanisms whirred to life. Dr. Zorn stared at his monitoring equipment, his elongated features contorting in disbelief. Incredible! The excess energy is being redistributed throughout the city's subsystems. The core, it's stabilizing. I activated a protocol designed for extreme situations, Ceres explained, her skin pulsing with relief and excitement. It's channeling the reactor's excess energy throughout the city. Before Dennis could respond, the floor beneath them trembled. Admiral Harding's voice crackled over the comms, tinged with confusion. Atlantis, what's happening down there? Our sensors are showing massive structural changes. Outside, the ocean churned as more of the ancient city emerged from the depths. Spires stretched skyward, and vast platforms unfolded like the petals of a metallic flower. Within minutes, a floating metropolis of breathtaking scale and complexity hovered above the waves. In the control room, Dennis swayed on his feet, overwhelmed by the surge of information flooding his mind. Ceres rushed to steady him, concern etched on her face. He nodded slowly, his eyes focusing on her. I'm more than all right. It's incredible, Ceres. I can feel every part of the city, every system. It's like my consciousness has expanded. Dr. Zorn approached, his scanner humming as he examined Dennis. Fascinating. It appears the interface between your mind and Atlantis's AI has deepened. You've achieved a unique symbiosis. Their moment of wonder was interrupted by a priority transmission from Admiral Harding. Atlantis, we've intercepted a distress signal from the retreating destroyer fleet. But that's not all. We're detecting a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system. Multiple ships, unlike anything we've seen before. Dennis's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. They're calling themselves the Arbiters. Their technology, it's even more advanced than the destroyers. Ceres frowned. Arbiters? What do they want? As if in answer, a booming voice echoed through Atlantis's communication systems, resonating with authority and age. Inhabitants of Earth and destroyers alike, we are the Arbiters. Your conflict has drawn our attention. We come to pass judgment on your actions, as is our duty under galactic law. As the transmission ended, chaos erupted. Reports flooded in from Earth about mass panic as the fully revealed Atlantis dominated news broadcasts worldwide. Governments scrambled to maintain order, and the United Nations called an emergency session. In Atlantis's control room, Dr. Zorn hunched over a console, his eyes wide with excitement. I've found something in the Atlantean records. The Arbiters, they were involved in the conflict that sank Atlantis thousands of years ago. Dennis and Ceres exchanged glances. That information could be crucial in our negotiations, Ceres said. Dennis nodded, then winced as another surge of data flowed through his mind. There's more. Atlantis has a network of defensive satellites in orbit. If we can activate them, it could significantly boost Earth's defenses. As they prepared to activate the satellite network, Atlantis continued to reconfigure itself, each transformation revealing new wonders and potential weapons. In orbit, Earth's coalition forces regrouped around the floating city, wary of both the approaching Arbiters and the secrets Atlantis might yet reveal. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, poised between ancient powers and future possibilities. As Dennis reached out to the hidden satellites, his consciousness expanding into Earth's orbit, Ceres watched with a mixture of awe and fear. The true test of their unlikely alliance was just beginning. Dennis reached out with his mind, his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of Atlantis and into Earth's orbit. As he connected with the hidden satellite network, dormant for millennia, he felt a surge of power coursing through him. Ceres watched the holographic display as dozens of points of light blinked into existence around Earth. The satellites, once invisible, now revealed themselves as sleek, angular platforms of Atlantean design. It's working! Dr. Zorn exclaimed, his elongated fingers dancing across his console. The grid is forming a protective shield around the planet. As the last satellite came online, Dennis gasped, his body tensing. Ceres rushed to his side, supporting him as he swayed. Admiral Harding's voice crackled over the comms, urgent and commanding. All coalition forces, take up defensive positions around Atlantis. We can't risk leaving Earth's primary defense exposed. As ships maneuvered into formation, Harding opened a channel to the Arbiter fleet. This is Admiral Harding of Earth's Defense Forces. We activated our orbital grid as a precautionary measure only. We have no hostile intentions towards your people. The response came swiftly, a deep, resonant voice filling the command center. Your actions speak louder than your words, humans. The activation of such weaponry can only be seen as an act of aggression. Dennis winced, processing the influx of data from Atlantis' sensors. They're charging weapon systems. We need to de-escalate this situation fast. Ceres nodded, her mind racing. Dennis, can you use Atlantis' communication array to broadcast a wideband message? We need to reach their entire fleet. As Dennis complied, Ceres spoke, her voice calm and measured. Arbiter Fleet, this is Ceres of Atlantis. We understand your concerns, but I assure you our intentions are peaceful. We request a diplomatic meeting to discuss the situation and avoid any misunderstandings. There was a tense pause before the Arbiter voice responded. We will consider your request. Stand by for our decision. Dennis, what's happening to you? Dr. Zorn approached, his scanner humming as he examined Dennis. His neural patterns are becoming increasingly synchronized with Atlantis' AI. If this continues, he may lose his human consciousness entirely. Ceres set her jaw, purpose etched on her face. Not if I can help it. Dr. Zorn, I need your help. We're going to find a way to stabilize his condition. As they worked feverishly, Dennis's consciousness expanded further. Visions flashed before his eyes, glimpses of ancient conflicts, of Atlantis rising and falling, of the arbiters and destroyers locked in a dance of destruction across the stars. The arbiters, he gasped, his voice distant. They were here before. They were allies of Atlantis once. Dr. Zorn's head snapped up from his work. What? Dennis, can you access the historical archives? We need to know more about this relationship. As Dennis delved deeper into Atlantis' records, Earth's governments scrambled to respond to the unfolding crisis. The United Nations convened an emergency session, broadcasting to billions of terrified citizens worldwide. In light of these extraordinary circumstances, the Secretary General announced, we have appointed Ambassador Michael Chen as Earth's official representative to the Arbiters. Ambassador Chen's expertise in xenobiology and his diplomatic skills make him uniquely qualified for this crucial role. In Atlantis' command center, Admiral Harding received a priority transmission. Atlantis, this is Ambassador Chen. I'm en route with a small delegation. We need to establish contact with the Arbiters as soon as possible. As Chen's shuttle approached, the Arbiter fleet suddenly deployed a massive energy field. Alarms blared across Earth's defense network as conventional weapon systems went dark. They've neutralized most of our defenses, Harding reported, his voice tense. Only Atlantis and the orbital platforms are still operational. Chen's voice came through, calm despite the circumstances. Then diplomacy is no longer just our best option. It's our only option. Atlantis, prepare for our arrival. We need to open a channel to the Arbiter flagship immediately. As Chen's team docked with Atlantis, Dennis's eyes snapped open, glowing with newfound knowledge. I know why they're here, he said, his voice resonating with the power of Atlantis. This isn't just about Earth. It's part of an ancient conflict, one that's about to reignite. Before Dennis could respond, a new voice echoed through Atlantis' communication system. Deep, authoritative, and ancient beyond measure. People of Earth and Atlantis, it intoned, I am High Judge Zalax of the Arbiters. We have considered your request for a diplomatic meeting. Given the gravity of the situation, we agree to convene on neutral ground, the city of Atlantis itself. As preparations for the summit began, Dennis's body tensed, his form flickering more rapidly. There's more, he whispered. Something hidden deep within Atlantis, a chamber, a repository of knowledge. It could change everything. Ceres exchanged a look with Dr. Zorn. We need to find it, she said. But Dennis, accessing it might push you past the point of no return. Are you sure about this? Dennis met her gaze, his eyes simultaneously alien and achingly human. We don't have a choice. Earth's fate hangs in the balance. Whatever happens to me, it's worth the risk. As Ceres and Dr. Zorn prepared to search for the hidden chamber, Ambassador Chen arrived at the command center, his face etched with the weight of his responsibility. We have one chance to get this right, Chen said, surveying the assembled team. The fate of Earth depends on what happens in the next few hours. Unbeknownst to the group in Atlantis, at the edge of the solar system, the remnants of the destroyer fleet regrouped. Battered but not broken, they began to gather reinforcements, their eyes fixed on the prize that had eluded them for so long. As Earth braced for the diplomatic summit that would decide its fate, three forces converged on Atlantis: the Arbiters with their ancient authority, the Destroyers with their desperate hunger, and humanity with its newfound power and terrible responsibility. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy. As Ambassador Chen's shuttle docked with Atlantis, the city's defenses hummed with terrifying energy. Dennis and Ceres stood at the airlock, their faces etched with the gravity of the moment. The door hissed open, revealing Chen and his delegation, their eyes wide as they took in the breathtaking alien architecture. "Welcome to Atlantis, Ambassador," Dennis said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "We don't have much time." Chen nodded, his expression resolute. "Let's get to work." As they made their way to the central plaza, Atlantis's systems pulsed with activity. The orbital platforms formed a glittering web around Earth, visible through the city's transparent domes. Dennis's eyes flashed, processing the constant stream of data. Suddenly, the air in the plaza shimmered, coalescing into tall, silvery figures. The Arbiter delegation materialized, led by High Judge Zalax. Their piercing blue eyes swept across the assembled humans, radiating ancient power. "We come to pass judgment," Zalax intoned, his voice echoing through the chamber. Chen stepped forward, bowing slightly. "High Judge, we welcome you to Earth and thank you for agreeing to this summit. We seek peaceful resolution and mutual understanding." In that moment, a torrent of information flooded Dennis's consciousness. Millennia of history unfolded before him. The rise of Atlantis, its conflict with the Destroyers, the Arbiters' fateful decisions. He saw it all with crystal clarity. Meanwhile, deep within Atlantis, Ceres and Dr. Zorn worked feverishly in the hidden chamber they had discovered. Ancient machinery hummed to life under their touch, holographic displays flickering into existence. "There!" Dr. Zorn exclaimed, his long fingers dancing across an alien console. "I think I've got it." "Honored Arbiters," he said, his voice resonating with the power of Atlantis, "there is more to this story than you know." With a gesture, Dennis projected the newly uncovered historical records into the air. The assembled delegates gasped as scenes of ancient conflict played out before them. "The Atlanteans sought to share knowledge, to uplift developing worlds," Dennis explained. "But your non-interference policy allowed the Destroyers to gain power unchecked." Chen, seizing the moment, stepped forward. "High Judge, honored Arbiters, we stand at a crossroads. Earth and its allies could serve as a bridge between advanced civilizations and developing worlds. We could create a new galactic order, one of cooperation and mutual growth." "They're attacking the orbital defenses," Admiral Harding's voice crackled over the comms. Dennis's eyes narrowed, his consciousness expanding to encompass all of Atlantis's systems. "Not for long," he said. Massive energy beams erupted from Atlantis's spires, lancing out into space. The orbital platforms joined the assault, creating a web of defensive fire that tore through the destroyer ships. High Judge Zalax watched the battle unfold, his expression unreadable. Then, with a gesture, he opened a channel to the hidden Arbiter fleet. "The time for neutrality has passed," he declared. "We will join this fight." Space around Earth shimmered as hundreds of advanced Arbiter ships decloaked, joining the fray. The combined might of Earth, Atlantis, and the Arbiters slowly pushed back the destroyer assault. But victory was not assured. A group of destroyer ships broke through the defensive line, streaking towards Atlantis with single-minded purpose. With a thought, he initiated Atlantis's final transformation sequence. The city shuddered, plates shifting and locking into new configurations. Spires retracted, engines emerged, and slowly, majestically, Atlantis began to rise from the ocean. Ceres, racing back to the control room, saw Dennis suspended in a cocoon of energy, his form barely recognizable as human. "Dennis!" she cried out, reaching for him. "Don't lose yourself!" As Atlantis ascended into low Earth orbit, the destroyer ships adjusted course, weapons charging. The city turned starships' defenses sprang to life, energy shields shimmering into existence. In the control room, Ceres worked frantically, searching for a way to preserve Dennis's humanity. Around her, Atlantis pulsed with power, preparing to meet the destroyer threat head-on. High above Earth, three forces converged: the destroyers, driven by their insatiable hunger for power; the arbiters, their ancient neutrality shattered; and humanity, standing defiantly with their newfound allies and awesome technology. As the final battle approached, the fate of Earth, the balance of galactic power, and Dennis's very existence hung in the balance. Atlantis, once hidden beneath the waves, now stood revealed in all its glory, humanity's last, best hope against the darkness that threatened to engulf them all. As Atlantis ascended into low Earth orbit, its metamorphosis into a colossal starship complete, Dennis felt his consciousness expand exponentially. His mind merged with the ancient vessel's systems, accessing millennia of knowledge and power. The final confrontation with the destroyers loomed, with Atlantis at the epicenter of the impending storm. The destroyer fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons, their beams slicing through the vacuum of space. Dennis, now intimately connected to every facet of Atlantis, activated the city ship's most formidable defenses. Massive energy shields materialized around the vessel, absorbing the incoming fire with a soft blue glow. Inside Atlantis's transforming corridors, Ceres sprinted towards the central control room. Her footsteps echoed through the shifting passageways as she navigated the labyrinth of ancient technology. She burst into the control center, her eyes immediately locking onto Dennis's motionless form. His body lay still, connected to Atlantis's systems by a web of glowing tendrils. Ceres approached, her hand hovering over the alien interface. "Hold on, Dennis," she whispered, her fingers dancing across the controls. "I'm getting you out of there." Outside, the battle raged with increasing intensity. Ambassador Chen's voice crackled over the comms, coordinating with High Judge Zalax. "Earth fighters, form up on the Arbiter's flank. We need to keep the destroyers off Atlantis while it charges its main weapon." Arbiter ships engaged the destroyers in intricate dogfights, their advanced technology evident in every nimble maneuver. Earth's fighters darted between the larger vessels, exploiting gaps in the enemy formations with precision strikes. Admiral Harding's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim but determined. "All ships, execute Operation Trojan Horse. Strike Team Zulu, you have a go." Inside the enemy vessel, Dr. Zorn led his team through dimly lit corridors. "Remember," he whispered, "we need to reach the main computer core. Once we upload this virus, their entire fleet will be vulnerable." Simultaneously, in the bowels of the destroyer flagship, Dr. Zorn inserted a data crystal into the alien computer core. "Virus uploaded," he reported, his voice tense. "Let's hope this works." Back in Atlantis's control room, Ceres initiated the final sequence to separate Dennis's consciousness from the city ship. The room filled with a brilliant, pulsating light. Dennis's body arched off the interface platform, his eyes snapping open as his mind rushed back into his physical form. The abrupt disconnection sent shockwaves through Atlantis' systems. Alarms blared as energy surged uncontrollably through the city ship's circuitry. Dennis stumbled to his feet, his palms sweating from the sudden return to his body. "Dennis!" Ceres steadied him, her eyes searching his face. "Are you okay? Do you remember who you are?" As Dennis stabilized the ancient vessel, the space around Earth grew quiet. The remaining destroyer ships, powerless and outmatched, began to retreat. High Judge Zalax's voice resonated through the command center. "People of Earth," the Arbiter intoned, "you have proven yourselves worthy allies. The judgment against your world is hereby rescinded. Instead, we propose a new alliance, with Earth and Atlantis serving as a bridge between advanced and developing civilizations." In the days that followed, Earth's governments convened to discuss the planet's new role in the galactic community. Dennis, still processing the vast knowledge gained from his merger with Atlantis, found himself at the center of these discussions. Atlantis will serve as neutral ground, he explained to the assembled world leaders, a place for interstellar diplomacy and scientific exchange. We have an opportunity to help shape the future of the galaxy. As the aftermath of the battle settled, preparations began for a historic ceremony aboard Atlantis. The city ship, now in stable orbit around Earth, buzzed with activity as delegates from across the galaxy arrived. Dennis stood before a mirror in his quarters, adjusting the formal attire that marked him as Earth's primary representative and custodian of Atlantis. Ceres entered, wearing an elegant gown that complemented her Bolian features. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, taking his hand. Dennis took a deep breath, feeling the gentle hum of Atlantis in the back of his mind. "As ready as I'll ever be. It's a big responsibility, but with you by my side, I think we can handle it." They made their way to the central plaza, where representatives from humanity, the Bolians, arbiters, and dozens of other alien races had gathered. The Atlantis Accords lay on a crystal pedestal, ready to be signed. As Dennis stepped forward to address the assembled delegates, he caught sight of Earth through one of Atlantis's transparent domes. The blue planet hung serenely in space, a reminder of how far they had come and the incredible journey that lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.